My dear viewers and listeners, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the first ever episode of the HIC podcast, a brand new innovation from the Husaini Islamic Centre, Peterborough, where we dive in deep and interview reciters, influencers, lecturers, and business minds. For those who do not know me, my name is Shozab Ali Ibrahim, and I'm your host for the evening. Today's episode has been sponsored by Ash's Ice Cream Shop. I just want to comment on how amazing this custom studio looks. Absolutely stunning. My hat's off to the HIC AV team, who, to be honest, need no introduction. They are world class. My guest for tonight is a servant of the Ahlul Bayt, a father of two. In business, he is a deal maker, and with his eloquent recitations, a heartbreaker. A dear friend of mine who coincidentally shares his title with a makeup brand. Let me introduce you to my brother and none other than Muhammad Abbas Kareem, also known as MAK. MAK, salam alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
How are you doing?
Alhamdulillah, with your du'as.
Thank you for coming onto the show and gracing us with your presence.
Thank you, it's my pleasure.
Where do we get started? You are a world-renowned reciter, watched by millions around the world. But we want to get started with, where was the starting point?
Where was the starting point? First of all, thank you to HIC podcast. It's an amazing setup, and inshallah, I wish all the success for this podcast and various shows. I encourage everyone to tune in for the shows to come. It's going to be quite exciting. Where do we get started?
Now, did you recite when you were back in Africa, or did it start in Peterborough?
So the recitation journey started pretty much when I was sort of a toddler. There's videos when I was like, I still have those videos. Still trying to convert them into a format that can be played outside of tapes. But I think I was about 3 years old and, you know, showed a passion and interest. And that sort of, it's been a bit of a journey, and it's probably going to be a word that I use throughout this podcast because I think this is all part and parcel of a journey. So yeah, to answer your question, I started in Africa from about, I think from the Imam Barga, I probably started in the ladies at about 4 or 5 years old.
Great place to start.
Qabristan, Majlis. And then, so I think in the Imam Barga and the gents was about 6, 7. It's when I sort of properly recited. I remember once putting my name down for a Noha. So Marcia was a bit, you know, you don't have to follow a tempo or anything, but I remember putting my name down to surprise my parents to recite Noha. And I think I surprised myself as well because I wasn't able to keep the tempo at 6 years old. And then, yeah, that evolution continued as I moved to Peterborough when I was about 9 years old. And it's kind of ever since.
How were your nerves when you were reciting in front of the mic? First time you see a crowd of 40 to 50 people, you're 6, 7 years old. What were your nerves feeling like?
I think the nerves kind of, again, they change. So when you're young, you're pretty fearless. So you probably don't have as many nerves. And then as you sort of realize that you're in front of a crowd, you get more nervous. And then as you build experience, you get less nervous. And then there comes a point when you become quite comfortable. So it's, again, that's been an evolution. But alhamdulillah, I think with the blessings of Ahlul Bayt, you can work on those types of things in terms of nerves. And you know, I think the more experience and the more exposure you get, the less the nerves get as well.
So given that you moved here to Peterborough when you were 9, you said?
Yeah.
When you're 9 years old, what role did this centre help in that growth? You know, were there any other communities that may have helped in your growth? Yeah,
I think Peterborough was quite a bit of a turning point as well. One of the things I remember quite vividly was the encouragement. The people who are in Peterborough remember that actually, in addition to Nohas and Manqabat, I recited quite a bit of dua.
Duas, yeah. Your munajat with Imam Ali.
Thank you.
Crazy.
So what was quite telling when I moved here was a lot of encouragement from the Mu'mineen here. I still remember a few names. I won't mention them just in case they want to remain anonymous. But I still remember reciting Dua Tawassul here when I was around 9.5, probably not even 10. And at those times, £2 had a value. And I remember this person gave me, someone gave me £5 for this Dua Tawassul. But I remember someone gave me £2 for something, I can't remember. But you know, when you're a 9-year-old, and you know, in those days, you know, that it wasn't so much about the value of the currency or the money. It was more someone's kind of appreciated that, and that was quite important. And I think the community as a whole has had different facets in terms of encouraging for reciting. You know, there were people in the community who at that time I looked up to, and I still look up to today. But I think especially when I was younger, there were people in the Sangat, the Anjumane, Ghulaman Ahl Bayt.
Yep.
So I remember reciting with them as a young boy. I remember Abbas Karim recited a particular Noha Ai Zainab Bazar, and that had an impact. I remember Muhammad Sikh Jafar recited Noha Bazar Ke Manzar Ko, which he still recites, which had a big impact. So this is probably for some individuals. There were the people, the elders who encouraged me. So it's had a big impact, alhamdulillah. And I think also it's a smaller community, Peterborough. So I think, I guess you probably get more opportunities in a centre like Peterborough. And then in terms of other centres, I think Hyder's had a big impact as well. Probably more in my
because you
teenage
studied
years.
there as well.
Yeah, so I was close to Hyder when I was at uni. But yeah, so alhamdulillah, outside of Peterborough, Hyder's had quite a profound impact. But I think Peterborough has been the sort of the key. Quarterback, if you like.
Because, you know, my earliest memory of you reciting was our Syria trip in 2005. You know, 4 or 5 of us lads, we're sitting in front of the shrine of Sayyidah Zainab. You started reciting. It was a marsha. It started into a noha. You know, the 4 of us lined up doing matam. Within 20 minutes, there were 20, 30, 40 people doing matam, watching you. And in the corner, I see Irfan Haider just looking at you. And at that point, I felt that was a turning point. Like, this was a major focal point in your journey.
No, I thought you were going to say something else about Syria as well, because we got into a bit of trouble.
Yeah, we did.
So those people who were in that trip will remember that.
Yeah.
But we'll keep that offline. No, Syria, I mean, I think Syria, I had been Umrah before then when I was, I think 4 or 5 years old with my parents. But I think Syria was probably the first ziyarat in my sort of youth, if you like. And that was definitely a turning point. I remember that trip where one of our friends, Ali Mawani, sort of randomly said to me, let's go. But we didn't know who was organizing. That was the trip organized by Hyder. And the poster was downstairs. And it kind of just rolled into something. And when we got there, you know, not much to expect. But again, another name, you know, Ali encouraged a lot. He was printing out all these pages and he collected them. He said, we're going to
holding your
together. Books. I think so, yeah. And I was like, you know, I was a little bit shy at the time. So I remember saying, I just don't want to do this. But we got there and that trip was, you know, I think it was, you know, probably the biggest turning point in general, because it was a ziyarat, Bibi Zainab Shrine.
Yeah.
And, you know, we had a group there. I remember we ended up reciting at different places as either individuals or group. I know we missed the Bazar Sham first day trip because we overslept.
Yeah, overslept, yeah.
That was probably a good memory if people again watching this know about that. But yeah, I think we were supposed to wake up at 7 to get to this Bazar Sham trip, and what time did we wake up? About 2 p.m. and there was no one in the hotel.
Yep.
And the group leaders were trying to find where are these 5 boys from Peterborough. But yeah, it was a massive turning point. And I remember what you're talking about when we were sitting in the Sahan and the crowd gathered round, and it was a surreal feeling. Because
did you notice Irfan Haider?
No, I was. I remember him reciting, but
because he recited straight after you, like you sort of finished because the crowd had grown massive.
Yeah, I do. Sorry, I do remember him reciting after me.
And then,
I actually do remember him reciting after me. Yes, that bit. I don't remember the bit. You're probably because I was reciting, but I do remember him reciting after me. Yeah,
because now, alhamdulillah, you travel many times in the year to all the holy lands, which is such a blessing.
Alhamdulillah.
What was the first group you recited with, or you went with officially as a reciter? And, you know, how did that part of your journey evolve?
So, yeah, again, I've been extremely fortunate to visit the Holy Lands for a number of consecutive years. So the first group I sort of recited with as a reciter, if you like, was I think in 2008 perhaps, with the Haydari Arbaeen group. Okay. Which was, again, an amazing experience, another turning point. And then, you know, after that, it was the Karwan-e-Hujjat with the Naqvi brothers. I believe that was in 2009. Again, another amazing experience. And I think it was back end of 2009, start of 2010, there was the first trip with Spiritual Journeys. And as you know, that's been a journey since then. You know, it's become like a family for me, the group. And alhamdulillah, I've been serving with that group for, I think, 14 years now.
Yeah, fantastic group. What other turning points would you say there were? Obviously, we've said about Syria. We said about joining these groups as a reciter for the first time. But what other turning points were there as a reciter?
I think it's a good question, by the way, because I think this is a journey, and there'll always be points which impact you. So I think one was the bit I mentioned around the encouragement first in Peterborough from some of the Mu'mineen, some of the uncles, and we're lucky that they're still around, and I meet fondly even today. Turning point, one of the other turning points in terms of Peterborough was, if you remember, we had the majlis upstairs for Muharram, when Maulana Sibtain Kazmi came, and I just had a few nohas and I just went to recite. But I think the response from the crowd and him in particular really encouraged me. I thought that was, I still remember that. We still had the MP3s, showing my age a bit now, but we had the MP3s I used to record. I still have the recordings now. So that was a huge turning point. I think the different yards was also a turning point. There's one other thing which probably people don't know, but there was a reciter. He's based in India. His name's Misam Gopalpuri, and I don't know why or how, but he ended up reciting in Peterborough. It was off. There was no Jashan or anything. Somebody arranged for him to come, and my Urdu was sort of relatively basic at the time, but I think it was, I literally came here to pray Maghrib and Isha with my dad, and he was going to recite this qasida. I was like, okay, let's just see what it's all about. And then it was amazing, and I kind of understood a little bit of it, and I was like, this is incredible. And I remember, I think he recited in Leicester after that, and I went with my dad to watch in Leicester.
Because I want to touch on that point very quickly, because Urdu is not your mother tongue.
No.
Yeah, but you recite so beautifully, correctly, pronunciations, everything. I just wanted you to just expand on that, because it just doesn't come naturally.
Yeah, Urdu, look, it's a beautiful language, and you're correct, it's not my mother tongue. But it's become a passion and part of parcel of kind of what I enjoy doing. So I think the journey in Urdu began perhaps when I was about 7 years old, and I recited something. The kalam was Pukara Shehne Kahin Bar, Zainab, Zainab, Zainab. And there was a word, I remember the word, and I said it in a certain way. And I remember my dad said, that's not right. And I was like, oh, I didn't realize the importance, but I think my dad sort of instilled that from when I was young. So I tried, I'd ask my dad, is this right? Is this right? And then I remember when I was about 13 or 14, whenever you make your choices for GCSE, I was going to take French. And, for the Peterborough viewers, Jack Hunt is a languages school. So I was going to take French. And I remember I was in the car going with the reciter who's also related to me, Abbas, known as Bandali, or Abbas Bandali. Yeah. And I told him I'm going to take French. And he was like, why would you do that? In the sense that you're nothing wrong with French, but you recite it, you do Urdu, it'll be good for you. And I was like, yeah, why not? Because I used to enjoy it, because I think we did it in year 8 and year 9.
Yeah, that's really insightful. You've mentioned a couple of names. Who else has really helped you in your formative years?
Yeah, look, without a shadow of doubt, my parents, in their respective capacities. So my mom, and I still have those books since I was 5. So again, before the age of the internet and all the apps that we have now, my mom used to write all the nohas by hand. And then, it was a case of, again, people will be able to relate to this, but it was a case of having the tape recorders play, write a few words, pause, play,
rewind.
Right, yeah, and sometimes rewind. And I think just in terms of the actual recitation, I think my mom was really influential in that respect. And then my dad, more in the sort of as a sort of a mentor, and just I whether it be taking me to somewhere or in terms of guiding me. The Urdu thing I mentioned, that was huge. So my parents, and outside of my immediate family, also family, is Muallim Murtaza Bandali, who is my mum's uncle. Huge influence since I was sort of a toddler. If you remember his cassettes, the red cassette and all the different colors that used to come along, somebody I highly look up to, and it was massively influential, especially in my formative years. Also because I could relate to him. And there's still stories that, my parents will tell me now where I wouldn't sleep without listening to a particular tape of his. But yeah, that was in the formative years. I think if you're talking about more sort of in the journey, there's a few names I mentioned already. There's a few names as I was, becoming a teenager and beyond, which I think definitely helped and played a major role. One is Dr. Liaquat Dewji of Haydari. You know, really encouraged me. Sort of, I think he was one of the sort of initial people that invited me outside of Peterborough to HIC, and just generally was highly supportive. And another someone that I'm extremely close to till now, and inshallah into the future years, is Murza Kanani, more popularly known as Montu. The lead group leader of Spiritual Journeys. You know, highly supportive in every capacity in terms of, you know, like an older brother, mentorship, and I think just sort of allowing me to express myself in this journey. Yeah, those are probably the names that stick out in my mind. Actually, no, there's a few more now that I think about it. So
we have time. Keep going.
Coming back to Peterborough, Sibtain Damji.
Mr. Shia Sports,
Yeah, so it wasn't actually the Shia Sports angle. I remember his dad, actually, marhum, Allah give him Jannah, was recording a CD for Sibi's wedding. I think it was 2007, if I'm not mistaken. And so, yeah, Sibtain was highly influential then. Ali Moani was really encouraged me in that sort of 2005-06 era. I'm sure there's other names which I probably have forgotten. But yeah, you know, I think, you know, I'm highly grateful for the names I mentioned, and probably some of the names that aren't coming to my mind now. You know, I'm super fortunate to have these people in my life and to have had, you know, to spend time with them, and, you know, the mentorship and guidance they've given me along the journey.
One thing that people don't realize, that this journey, your recitation, takes hard work, dedication, time. Now we, as friends, we all say, Max disappeared again, he's gone into occultation again. You know, there's a lot of things that people don't know that you do behind closed doors. You know, how do you intertwine your family, your work? You know, so there must be a lot of time management that gets involved in that.
Yeah, look, it's not easy. It's all a game of sort of balance. I think the family thing, super fortunate. I think my wife is extremely supportive of this, and also passionate in Azadari. So I think this service is something that, you know I'm sort of the face of it, but there's a lot behind the scenes that people won't appreciate. So, you know, from a family angle, there's a lot of support. And I think a lot of what I do, because it's Azadari, it's sort of, using your word, you know, it's intertwined in family life. So I think the you know, even the kids, they're super into this. So that helps.
Future reciters in the family, I'm sure.
Inshallah. I think the work thing, to be honest, is a challenge. The environment in which I work in is really unpredictable. As you guys know, the hours can be really challenging. You know, late into the evenings, you're working with the US, so the time difference, the weekends, and sometimes you can't switch off. So that bit is quite hard. How do I balance it? I'm relatively strict when it comes to diaries, so everything is sort of on a diary, and people are like, oh, you know, it's not, I'm not trying to be difficult. It's just if I don't stick to a diary or stick to a plan, it's really hard to manage everything. So I just try and carve out, for example, you know, Saturday morning is non-negotiable. That's the drop I do for my daughter. Sunday evenings, as a lot of people know, that's non-negotiable. That's, you know, my family time. Of course, like, these are not hard rules, but I try my best to live by a diary. And look, you've got to do what you can. And very rarely will I sort of pull out of a commitment. I have done, if I'm honest. Sometimes, you know, you have no choice, but I try and sort of balance it. It's difficult, but, you know, when you enjoy what you do in all the elements, you just have to make it work. Time. One thing I will say, there's a lot of barakah when it comes to any of this, whether it's recitation, community service, anything you're doing for the pleasure of Allah, you will see barakah in your time.
Agreed. I'm sure in this journey, it's not been smooth sailing. I'm sure that there has been roadblocks, hurdles, whatever you want to call it. Can you elaborate further?
Look, I think in any journey, there's going to be hurdles and roadblocks. I think there aren't any specific roadblocks, I'd tell you, for this journey.
Don't be diplomatic. Mac, don't be the politician.
No, there really isn't. You know, I think one of the hurdles that a lot of reciters, boys especially, will face is when your voice is breaking. That I would say that's definitely a bit of a hurdle, because you go from being able to recite, with ease, and then you go to a phase where your voice doesn't come out. And that, I think, seriously is a bit of a hurdle for youth who are trying to sort of develop their recitation whilst their voice is breaking. So that was a bit of a hurdle early in the day. I think otherwise, this is a journey which is not in your hands. Everything is supported by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and with the du'as and blessings of Ahlul Bayt. I don't think you can really see any roadblocks. There might be some sort of dips in the road, or things that you stumble across, but there's nothing which I'd say this is a roadblock. Like I said, the time management thing can be harder, especially as you sort of get more and more sort of commitments under your plate. But yeah, no real roadblocks.
No read. Okay, good answer. Political
you don't believe
answer.
Me, do you?
I don't believe you. Your 3 favorite reciters and why?
Oh, that's a tough one.
And no political answers, please.
My 3 favorite reciters and why. The why element is really hard to define. Not because I don't want to answer the question. I'll try, and we'll see if they're acceptable to you. My 3 it's really hard to give you 3 names, but I'll throw a couple in after anyways. But so Nadeem Sarwar.
Yep.
Mukhtar Hussain Fatehpuri and Mir Hassan Mir. These are not good reciters. These are great reciters. They're absolutely legendary reciters. And there's more as well, to be honest, but you asked me for 3. And the reason I say that is because, if you think about Mir Hassan Mir, for example, or Sayyid Nadeem Sarwar, they've inspired. So we take, for example, Mir Hassan Mir, he's a big inspiration. I look up to him till now and beyond. And I was looking up to him when I was perhaps 17, 18. But even the boys who are 17, 18 now are looking up to him. And I would now probably argue they're probably a slightly different generation. So he's inspired 2 generations. You take Nadeem Sarwar, for example. He will have inspired the generation of sort of your Mir Hassan Mir, Farhan Waris, that sort of age group. Will have probably inspired those. In fact, he has inspired, Farhan Waris on record has said he's been inspired by Nadeem Sarwar. My generation, and then there's generations beyond. Even my kids listen. I mean, and Mukhtar Hussain Fatehpuri, again, an unbelievable voice. So I'll come on to the reasons why very quickly. But these people, their legacy will live on. So even 200-300 years down the line, people will be talking about them. There's people who, probably our generation won't be aware of, but the generation above will be. But like, there's a legendary reciter in the US, Zia Bhai, they call him, Ali Zia Rizvi, absolutely amazing. And he's inspired generations. There's Marhum Sache Bhai, again, these are huge pioneers of Noha Khani. So with the names I've given you, I think, inshallah, their legacy will continue for years and years and years. Look, there's names beyond that as well. But if you want me to stick to 3, I will.
3 is fine.
That's fine. And then the reason, look, it's hard. I mean, they're just great at what they do. Their delivery, their emotion in their voice, and they all have unique capabilities, which I think, is God-given.
And you're building your legacy too. So you never know, 20 years down the line, HIC podcast, episode 400, there might be a small kid saying, MAK is my inspiration.
Inshallah, that would be a dream.
One Noha that speaks to you. Now, it doesn't have to be a famous one. And even if you can recite a couple of couplets, it's a Noha that when you recite it or hear it, the tears will just flow.
Again, you're asking me difficult questions. Because Noha, as you know, are very close to my heart.
But just one that stands out. It's the first one that just pops into your head right now.
Duna ya Ghazi. It's timeless. Something that as soon as you hear the line, everybody's in tears because there's something about that Noha.
Agreed. One qasida that ignites the passion. It's like every qasida, I'm sure for you, increases that passion inside of you. But there must be one that stands out.
That's even more difficult because qasidas come in different sort of forms as well. Again, if you want me to answer a question without really...
First one that comes to your head.
It's the Ye Mola Ali Hai by Naqvi Brothers. I think that
Old
one,
school.
whenever you listen to it,
Yeah.
it just, they say it hits different.
The worst place you have recited at?
I think when it comes to the worst, I don't really think there's a worse place because, there are places where the experience could have been better. Certain things probably weren't done in the manner that they should have been. But I don't believe anybody tries to do that. I think these are just oversights or probably lack of experience or whatever it is. So I won't say there's like a worse place. There's... whenever you recite, I think fundamentally your niyat is that you're doing it for the Ahlul Bayt. So then to go to recite at a place and say, oh, this is the worst, who knows if that was the one recitation that got accepted.
Again, a very good answer, a very diplomatic, political answer. But you're right, the blessings that come from reciting in front of hundreds or reciting in front of thousands, you never know. In your recitation journey, what is the best decision you have made?
The best decision in this journey?
Yes.
I think I recorded probably later than I was perhaps expected to. So, there's, like I mentioned, the CD from Sibtain's wedding. There was actually a CD, 2 CDs that Coach did it, I think in 2000 I can't remember the year, it's probably 2008. They did a blue CD and a red CD. People might remember that.
Yeah.
There was no auto-tune or anything. So
I got mine hand delivered.
Yeah. Do you remember those CDs?
Yep, I do.
Yeah. Qasida was spelt wrong as well. But the proper official CD, I think I probably did a lot later than I should have. That I think was the best decision because I think that allowed me to sort of get comfortable and just really experience the live atmosphere and build my confidence and experience and just make sure that element is locked in. And the other thing is, because I think recording albums is not easy and everyone who does it will attest to this, but it also enabled me to focus on uni, focus on my ICA, just focus on getting the qualification, just getting the work, because in this day and age, I believe it's quite important to be able to have both sides of, if you're doing the service, that's great. But, in terms of what else are you offering, I think it's quite important. So whilst at the time it was like, I want to do this, sooner rather than later, looking back, it was probably the best decision I made.
Good. And on the flip side, the biggest regret?
I mentioned Urdu to you before. So I had an opportunity to pursue Urdu further, so A-levels and beyond into university. And I didn't because I just thought, it's just a language. And, you're kind of, the aim was to get into a corporate sort of job and all the rest of it. So I just didn't think it'd be valued. Knowing what I know now, because like I'll review CVs and stuff, I think language and language degrees are amazing. So I wish I'd done Urdu further. I mean, alhamdulillah, I've picked it up and I understand and all the rest of it. But to be able to have had, say, a degree in Urdu and management would have been, but, I think I managed my way through it.
Yeah, you did. You did. I want you to now impart some small pearls of wisdom to those viewers who have aspirations to recite.
Look, I don't think I mentioned there's people who inspire me, so they're probably where you get the real wisdom from. But in terms of anecdotal bits I can share from my experiences to date, I think your sincerity and niyyah should always be to please Allah and to seek the blessings and acceptance from the Ahlul Bayt, Bibi Fatima salamullahi alayha. That's kind of has to be the focal point. Everything around it just becomes noise. So I think ignore the noise and focus on the recitation. I think whichever language you're doing it in, make sure, say specifically this applies to Urdu, but make sure you understand it, whether it's Arabic, whichever other languages. I think, don't, people get nervous. I think just try and somehow overcome those by taking the opportunities. And I think, get a mentor and it doesn't have to be, I know it's not easy these days because people are just time poor. But it's always good to have someone to bounce ideas off. And then if someone criticizes you, don't take it too harshly. Just take it as constructive. You don't always have to be right. People might be sharing some information with you, which at the time you might feel like, oh, why is he telling me that? But just take it in the spirit in which it's meant. And yeah, so those are probably a few pearls of wisdom,
Pearls
as
of
you'd call
wisdom.
them.
Bringing it back home now, back to Peterborough. People know that you have taken on management roles for this community. How has that been, balancing it with wider commitments?
Yeah, so I think I was secretary for the last term and a trustee now. Amazing experience. I was fortunate enough to work with what we used to call the dream team. Obviously, we had Marhum Ramzan Uncle. So again, an amazing experience to work with him. I just wish I had a better secretary, assistant secretary. No, but the team was super helpful. Yourself, Abbas, Rizwan, Ramzan Uncle, Imtiaz. There was a supportive team. Again, the calendar thing I mentioned, that having sort of a routine and making sure you stick to it, that was helpful. I had to be flexible, because if you're not flexible with this type of commitment, it's really hard to maintain. Abbas Walji was super helpful. The AV team, all of them, without their support, no one can sort of function in the way that you to sort of function optimally.
The best AV team that you've had the pleasure of
without a
working
shadow
with?
of doubt.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Good. Now, to finish off, Mac, we're going to have the rapid fire round. No thinking. Should be easy for you.
Yeah.
First answer that comes to mind. Are you ready?
Okay.
Yeah. Playlist or podcasts?
Playlist.
Fruits or vegetables?
Fruit.
Batman or Superman?
Batman.
Comedy or horror?
Comedy.
Dine in or dine out?
Dine out.
Winter or summer?
Summer.
Noha or Mankabat?
Noha.
Tanzania or Uganda?
Tanzania.
Tea or coffee?
Coffee. Unless if it's tea from Karachi.
Urdu or English?
Urdu.
Volleyball or squash?
Squash.
Morning person or night owl?
Night owl.
Reading or writing?
Writing.
Express burger or chicken palace?
Express burger.
Live or studio?
Live.
Friends or family?
Friends who become family, and family.
Excellent answer. Excellent. Thank you, Muhammad Abbas. You've been an amazing guest, and it has been an honor to interview you. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala elevate your status even further, inshallah, and maybe continue to hear your beautiful mankabats and nohas.
Inshallah. Thank you.
Finally, to my audience, this is Shozab Ali Ibrahim signing off from the HIC podcast. I hope you enjoyed the journey as much as we did bringing it to you. Don't forget to like and subscribe, comment and share with your friends and family. I thank you for your time, and keep calm and make dua. See you next week, inshallah. Khuda Hafiz.